Welcome to part 2 of this sound design tutorial for bass. In the first video, we covered how to create the main mid-bass sound, and now we're going to move on to the sub. So I've soloed the sub in our instrument rack here, and I'm going to let you listen to it on its own. Okay, one thing I will caveat this with, as I do with all my sub-bass tutorials, is if you are not listening on proper speakers or headphones, you're not going to hear it. So if you're listening on laptop speakers or crappy headphones, then you may as well not even bother. So definitely you want to be hearing what you're doing in the sub-range, and you need speakers that are capable of producing those frequencies to do so. The first step I'm going to do here is deactivate our massive low-passing EQ here so you can hear the massive patch raw. Okay, let's open up Massive now. This one's going to be a lot easier than our previous one. The mid-bass was a bit more complex. Sub-bass is always much easier. It's mainly about just getting your levels right and choosing the right oscillators. So you can see in this massive patch, we are using oscillator 1, oscillator 2. Oscillator 3 is not active. And let's just go through them one by one. You can see as well, I've knocked the pitch down, -12, -12, just to put it solidly in the bass range. So the first oscillator is the sine square. Very basic oscillator, can go from sine to a square wave depending on where you have the wavetable position knob. And in this case, you'll notice I have the wavetable position knob all the way over to the left, which means it is going to be a pure sine wave. You can see I have the amp up, but not all the way up. So I'm mixing in the sine wave with our next oscillator, which is one of my favorites. Now, a lot of people use a pure sine wave for their sub bass, and I find that works great if your music is only going to be played on large systems. Large systems are capable of producing those nice low sine waves, no problem. However, if your music is going to be listened to on smaller systems like cars, iPod headphones, laptop speakers, then you're going to want to add in a few more higher frequency harmonics, because those laptop speakers and a lot of car audio cannot produce those intensely low frequencies like club systems and festival systems can. So you're going to need to add in a waveform that has a bit more high end going on. But at the same time, you don't want to use something as aggressive as a saw or a square, because those have way too many high frequency harmonics, and it just makes it sound like a main bass patch and not sub. So you have to be very careful here. Now, Massive has an oscillator type here that is perfect for this. It's called smooth square. And a smooth square is like a square, but not as aggressive, which is, I think, why they call it a smooth square. It kind of sounds like halfway between a sine wave and a square wave. And I'm going to deactivate the sine wave and let you listen to the smooth square all on its own. Okay, very different than a regular square wave. I'm going to pick a square wave for you here. Where's our square? Square saw, okay? This is a regular square wave. Okay, tons of high frequency content going on there. If we go to the smooth square, listen to this. Way better for sub bass. So I'm using this one, I have it in smooth square, and the amp is all the way up. So it's a nice combination between the sine wave and the smooth square, which sounds like this. Now, there isn't much more to this patch. Like I said, when it comes to sub bass, you really don't want to get too complicated. I'm not using any inserts, I'm not using any filters, but what I am using is I am using a little bit of the classic tube. The classic tube, again, is providing kind of the same purpose as the smooth square. It's adding in a little bit of harmonic saturation. So I have the wet dry nice and low, the drive nice and low. Again, we're not trying to create an aggressive, distorted bass here. We're just trying to add a little bit of warmth, a little bit of fuzz that's going to help that sub to cut through on smaller systems. So here's without and with. Without, with. Without, with. Okay, so again, not a massive difference. It's not a huge difference, but when you're listening to it on a big system and all these little things, little techniques and tips stack up together, you end up making a much better bass all around. So the only thing I've done after that massive patch is added in an EQ8. So we have EQ8. You can see I have my first EQ set to 30 Hertz. We're giving it a little boost. Nice wide Q. So we're not going narrow here. We have it set all the way back. It was like 0.52, something like that. So it's a nice wide Q. We have EQ, the second EQ here, set to 208 Hertz, and it is set to low pass mode. You can see right here, rather than a bell curve, it's in low pass. So it's cutting out all the frequencies higher up. We don't have a lot. Again, it's a sub patch, so there were never very many higher order harmonics here, but we want to cut anything that's happening above that. So here's what it sounds like without and with. without, and with. So we're kind of boosting a lot of the lows and even low mids, and we're cutting all the highs out of there. So there's our sub patch. And if we team that up with the main bass, now here's what they sound like together.